It may seem strange, and a few years ago, I would have thought the same. The keeping of isopods, most commonly woodlice, otherwise known as pill bugs, roly-polies or sow bugs. Dedicating enclosures to these little critters, and often spending hundreds on the animals themselves. Watching them go about their lives, and observing many of the human-related behaviours. Fighting over food, running around, digging and, of course, breeding. There's also a wide range of colours, sizes and ease of care. There's currently 5 species in the SG Animals reptile shed, and I'm not even close to scratching the surface of the hobby. I first started keeping them to help build some cleanup crews. These guys are amazing at clearing up organic matter inside a reptile enclosure, and breaking it down into the soil ready for the plants to consume. And the more I learnt, the more invested I became. Different species have different temperaments. The largest species I keep, the giant oranges, belong to the Lavis family. These are very well known to be lovers of protein, so much so that if you don't feed them enough protein, they may begin to attack other invertebrates inside the enclosure, or even each other. Reptiles tend to be safe from this, as they're much larger. However, smaller animals like tarantulas or millipedes can receive wounds and even be killed by an overwhelming population of woodlice. The safest option tends to be dwarf whites, spending most of their time under the soil layer and being too small and passive to inflict any real damage. This is partly the reason many have started creating pill bug specific enclosures, to make sure no other species become part of the menu. There are other benefits though. Focusing breeding of certain species to enhance the chance of a good colour strain, bringing new morphs into the hobby, or in some cases like mine, simply utilising an enclosure to make a micro world, creating a fascinating and visually appealing space for your critters. Which moves us to a couple of the other species. Zebra woodlice, getting their name from the obvious pattern resemblance to zebra's black and white stripes, enjoying less humidity than the other 3 species, growing to a slightly smaller size and seemingly being much more passive in nature. However, they do breed like wildfire. A small group of 20 has fast exploded into hundreds in a matter of months. Then we have the clown woodlice, more on the colourful side than some of the others, with white spotted lines down either side, some having a yellow line running down the middle, and an orange skirt around the edges. Breed much slower than the zebras, and seem to be much more temperamental on the right temperatures to breed, but a stunning species with a very easygoing nature. Believe it or not, these guys cost me £3. It doesn't sound like much, until I tell you that's £3 each. One of the cheaper prices out there, and many species go for a much higher price. The keeping of pill bugs is definitely something on the rise, with knowledge of species growing and availability too. These make for fascinating pets that don't come with huge demands. The easier kept species that breed much more readily come as a colony for only a couple of pounds. Isopods aren't limited to pill bugs though. Another isopod that helps clean the enclosures, keeping them free of fungus. Springtails. Various species in existence, most of which max out at a millimetre or 2. However, some do grow larger. But isopods aren't limited to land only. Some species, even here in the UK, are fully aquatic, living in many water passages. Some species even favour the ocean. If you've got a pond at home, It's likely these aquatic species have found their way in some way or another. When keeping these guys, the enclosure does have to be secure. I set up an enclosure for my giant African millipedes and populated it with dwarf white woodlice. The nature of the enclosure meant there was always wood, leaves, fruit and veg available, which attracted populations of other species to leave some of the reptile enclosures and set up shop here instead. As you can see, they've completely taken over, which has led to me moving out the millipedes for the sake of their safety. The best way to keep these guys in a specific enclosure is definitely a glass vivarium or aerated plastic tub. In future, my reptile enclosures will only be stocked with dwarf whites, to avoid these migrations of the larger species to areas where they could prove harmful. The dwarf whites are also the least likely to damage plants. For the most part, isopods are often nature's little cleaners, helping dispose of carcasses, rotten organic matter, and performing a vital role in decomposition. Just peering into the hobby, you can really get a feel for the passion and knowledge surrounding these tiny species. Being from the UK, for a long time I was only exposed to small grey woodlice. Never did I think there were so many size, colour and pattern variations. But now, knowing the work they do in clearing up leaves, rotten wood and organic matter, helping to return the nutrients back to the soil for new plant life to begin, it's clear that they play a significant role in our day-to-day lives that we often just don't realise.